How you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. I'm going back to the Fantastic Four today because today is my little brother's birthday, and it made me think of this comic. That's like one of the premises of this YouTube channel is that I connect comics that I love and have a personal connection to. And the reason why I picked this on my brother's birthday is I got this the day he was born. I don't know if it came out the day he was born, but I went to I was a little kid and we went to the hospital and I sat in the hospital waiting room because for some reason they wouldn't allow kids to go into the area, but my father and I think my older brother and sisters were allowed to go in, but for whatever reason I was too young to go. I don't know, maybe my father just told me that because whatever. I don't know. But I sat there. So I went into the gift shop and they had these like packs of comics. There was like 3 comics in a bag. I mentioned that before with Avengers 156. So I got this pack of comics and opened it up and sat and just read and just waited, got the news or whatever while my father and my oldest brothers and sisters went to do the visiting, and I just sat waiting and read this comic over and over again, and I can't even remember what the other 2 comics in the pack were. So they probably were like, some, I don't know, non-superhero or whatever. But I read this over and over. This is the actual one too. So I figured since that memory came up today, I might as well capitalize on it and explore this comic together. So it was 1978, and again, It was a hospital gift shop, so I'm sure it wasn't current. So maybe it was, I don't know. It could have been any time. I got to remember what year my brother was born. So here we have the Fantastic Four. See them on TV, Saturday mornings on TV. The Fantastic Four, the cartoons were always so bad. I think these were the Herbie cartoons, meaning that the Human Torch wasn't in the cartoon. They had a robot named Herbie because the rumor was that they were afraid that kids would light themselves on fire, but the real reason was that the Human Torch was already licensed out, and this cartoon couldn't use the Human Torch. So why they didn't fill him in with like another Marvel superhero, I'll never know. But Herbie the robot, it was just terrible. So this is one of the lamest, not only one of the lamest Fantastic Four villains, but just one of the lamest Marvel villains, Quasimodo. He was a living computer. Well, they talk about his origin in the comics, so we'll get to that. And here we have the Fantastic Four and Iron Man teaming up to fight one of the lamest villains in Marvel history. Overall, this isn't the best comic, but it has like I said, an emotional component to it. I've talked about this before. I'm not going to do all about this. Matter of fact, I think it was in the very last video, the in-action figure. It was just molded Spider-Man, but it had electronics and like motors inside of it, so that you could attach like suction cups to the string and attach it to something, and it would pull up Spider-Man, or he would drag things. You could snap him in, and his motors inside of his body would twirl these propellers. And in this hand, it had like a plug-in that you could plug in like a little flashlight. So that was the spider signal. So here we have the splash page, and I remember this. This always drove me crazy. This coloring mistake on Reed's face. I don't know what it was. If like a glob of paint got on it, and then or it's just printing error. I don't know, but it always bothered me. So here we have the story box. A brilliant scientist, his best friend, the woman he loves, and her fiery tempered kid brother. Together, they braved the unknown terrors of outer space and were changed by cosmic rays into something more than merely human. Mr. Fantastic, the Thing, the Invisible Girl, the Human Torch. Now they are the Fantastic Four, and their world shall never be the same. I love that. So this is written by Marv Wolfman. This is, he was at Marvel at this point. This is before his historic Teen Titans run. John Buscema and Joe Sinnott. I talked about Sal Buscema, but there was John Buscema and Sal Buscema, and I don't know, I must have been a stupid kid. I never realized that they were different people. I just saw the name Buscema and then kind of just forgot about the first name. They were workhorses for Marvel. They just took jobs and were very competent, and you could see they adapted their style they adapted the styles to like a Marvel style. They were just a pleasure to see their work in a comic book. It was just very, I don't know what the word is, but just such like a standard superhero artwork. And then Joe Sinnott is the inker. Joe Sinnott was Jack Kirby's partner. Jack Kirby and Joe Sinnott had a long-term partnership, and as you can see, I think Joe Sinnott is turning the Buscema pencils to look like a Marvel House style or a Jack Kirby style. So, as a kid in this period, all the art seemed to mesh so well to me that I didn't pay attention to artists back then. It wasn't until later years that I started to read the credits and all the little editorials, stuff like that. But at this point, I just bought the comic and read the comic book, and looked at the laser beams and the fist fights, stuff like that. So, but I do remember for like this period, I started collecting the Fantastic Four with 184. But when I say collecting, to me, I didn't know about comic book stores or anything like that at this point. So it was just whenever I saw Fantastic Four on the newsstand, I would buy it. And this was one of them that I was missing. So I was just so happy to find this. And, I was missing an issue here, missing an issue there. I would get this issue, and then I'd see another issue. So it was like the thrill of the chase to find all this stuff. So this was a big deal for me to actually find this, because it filled in a gap in my collection. And the Fantastic Four had left the Baxter Building because the Fantastic Four broke up in 194. It was one of those, this is the end, that superhero comics do all the time. And now they're moving back into the Baxter Building with some, you'll see there's conditions and stuff like that. So now they're back and their alarms are going off. And Reed, look, here comes Iron Man. So Iron Man's coming to it. Oh, let's check out the indicia. Copyright 1978 Marvel Comics Group. So yeah, so this is officially 1978. And I just love this classic costume. The pajamas, I just love it. I would love Fantastic Four pajamas today. I'd wear them all the time, and I love the Thing. He's my favorite. So, and I love them all. I gotta say, Johnny Storm is my least favorite, but I still like him. So here, stretching. What an odd power, right? I mean, out of all the superpowers, would you want stretching? I don't know. I think Reed got the short end of the stick, even though he's the main driver of the Fantastic Four with his scientific knowledge and invention, stuff like that. So Iron Man just comes in like a missile, and note, he's not talking. So no man crashes in like that, not without answering to the Uber Torch. Flame on. And like I said, I was a dumb kid. I thought he had to say flame on in order to turn his fire powers on. I didn't realize that was just like his little catchphrase. I thought it was like he actually had to say it. So he turns fire and just whipping fireballs, and the Iron Man dodges them and then blasts them. Katak. He gets kataked by repulsor rays. And then the Thing scrunches the stuff. I just loved it. You could definitely, the Joe Sinnott inks just with the solid Buscema art, and he's just making it resemble Kirby in a way. And Joe Sinnott and George Perez were working together in Fantastic Four around the 180s. And I guess it's the Joe Sinnott inks that's just given a continuity that just, as a little kid, it just made me think this was the Fantastic Four. This is the way they looked. And it stuck with me. This is still the way the Fantastic Four looks to me all these years later. 20, 40 years later. This is just the way Fantastic Four is supposed to look to me. So here he is. I love that they're saying all these words as they're fighting. So he's throwing this doodad, and he thumps it. Crepes. He melted the Thing. Thump. That's the sound of a thing being melted, a doodad being melted. Thump. And flying around. Oh no, he took off before I could throw a force field around him. What's he up to now? He's spocking the Thing. The Thing got spocked. So he just kicks, and again, notice that he's not saying, and I love this Iron Man armor. This was Iron Man's armor for me when I was a kid. And he got clashed. What's in those boots? Mini-sized Galactuses? And he gets clashed out the wall. He's falling. I've got to save him. Reed, be careful. And it's a good thing she said that, because Reed never would have thought to be careful. That's one of my pet peeves, when people tell you to be careful. Like, oh, well, thank you. I never thought of that. If you order 5, you get a free subscription to Star Wars. What a great deal that was. So if you order 5, if you get 5 subscriptions, you get a 6th subscription free. What a great deal. Spider-Man Spectacular Spider-Man, Fantastic Four, Conan, Avengers, Incredible Hulk, Captain America, Daredevil, Thor, and Godzilla. That's a pretty small slate of, but what quality they all are. And I got to admit, this comic is kind of hokey. This particular issue is very hokey. So here's the Thing just falling, and Reed stretching down, grabs onto a building, and whoomp, he catches. And I always thought, like, Reed, the Thing, what he weighs like 500, 600 pounds, and Reed grabs, so his stretching ability must, like, cause his muscles to stretch so he could endure more damage or have like a little bit more strength than the average human body, or that would have killed him, stretching or not. But comic book physics, what do I know? So come on, move it, I want to get my mitts on that crumb. Crumb. So here's this was in like all the Fantastic Four comics at this time period. They had in their belt buckles, they have a sensor that activates these special elevators that only the Fantastic Four could access. So that's what the Thing's doing. He's calling down the elevator, and he's too impatient. I just love the Thing. He's too impatient to get up there. And you would want to say, if you were unfamiliar with the Thing, that he's only going up there because he just wants to fight. No, he's going up there because Sue and Johnny are up there, and he's got to protect them. That's the Thing. He's a good guy. Skarak. That's the sound of elevator doors being opened. So here he is climbing up while Reed's stretching up, and here she goes. Sue Richards dealing with Iron Man, and at this point, they still. She's a powerhouse. She has since become the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four, bar none, as far as sheer power goes. Reed Richards could defeat Galactus with his invention, stuff like that, but I'm talking about just power-wise, it's the Invisible Woman, and she's still called the Invisible Girl at this point. So, and she, she's a mother, and she's the Invisible Girl. But what do you figure? It's 1978. But she throws a force field around Iron Man over here. And Iron Man just starts blasting. Look at that. What a great panel that is. I just love that. I remember that, even though I haven't looked at this comic in so long. He could shatter my force field. I better become invisible. And at this point, her powers were kind of limited. She could either throw a force field or turn invisible. She can't do both. And like I always say, power creep happens. She gets more skilled with her powers, and she gets trained by Iron Fist and martial arts, and she just becomes a powerhouse. She could, without a doubt, she could take out. She beat the Thing. She beat the Hulk single-handedly. Back in like 140, Fantastic Four 146. So we're talking within a couple of years before this comic. So everybody knows she's a powerhouse except for her. And here she is. She's hiding from Iron Man. Katam, Swak. I love these silly sound captions. So here he is. He's activating some device. And again, note that he's not talking. And Human Torch, he shoots fire at him. What a scary power that must be, to be totally... Could you just imagine being in the same room with a person who just bursts into flames and shoots fire? First off, it's the heat alone would be unnerving. And then, just the person on fire. And everybody just casually, the guy on fire. Not even your armor could withstand my high-intensity heat blast. So... Foosh. What? And Iron Man just grabbed, well, it's a guy in armor, he could grab you, without damaging his flesh. And look, here's some old ads. Camelot. I don't know what that is. Oh, it's a comic book backstore. World's biggest comic convention. Look at this. Can you believe this? Oh, wow. I didn't know this. November 24th. This was near where I used to live. Oh, wow. This is near where I was living at the time. Meet 100 guests. Where? The Statler Hilton, Manhattan. Okay, yeah. So I was living near Manhattan at the time. But this is... Oh, wow. I'm doxing myself. I already showed my address. I filled out a subscription, and it was in one of the comics. So I kind of already showed you my old address. Doxing myself. The Fun Factory ads. Some candy bars. So... Iron Man grabs the Human Torch and whacks him. So he spins him around and just throws him. And when Human Torch loses consciousness, his power turns off. So it's a safeguard, so he doesn't just lay there burning and light the world on fire. So these two make it up. And look, it just bothers me how she's treated. She beat the Hulk, and now she's just like, oh, I ran away, and you men go get him. just because she's such a powerhouse. And here he's pulling the uncoupling lever. Stop him. There's the bum. Whack. So he kicks a desk at them. And crock, the thing just punches it out of the way. And what it does is these latches snap, snap, snap. They open up and launch the Baxter Building. And he explains when they left in issue 194, they vacated, they were renting this building from Mr. Collins is their evil landlord who's always bothering them, just like Peter Parker has J. Jonah Jameson showing up, but Mr. Collins would always show up at like the most inopportune times to demand the rent. But he really didn't have any he didn't have any juice, because nobody wanted to live there, because everybody was always afraid of Fantastic Four villains attacking. So when he said he wanted the Fantastic Four reformed and they were going to move back, they asked him if they could move. He jumped at the chance, trying to, play hardball, and he said, "You got to make it safe for the rest of the tenants," which isn't an unreasonable request. As much as Mr. Collins is portrayed as the bad guy, you got to protect the rest of the tenants from like Annihilus and Doctor Doom and all of these lunatics that do attack the building. So Reed made these latches, and then like anti-gravity kicks in and whisks the headquarters away, the top 5 floors. Yeah, the top 5. Yep, I remember that. The top 5 floors will be pulled away from anti-gravity devices. The whole blaming place is shaking. I'm being tossed overboard. Sheesh, we've been caught in a gravic backlash. So so here's the top 5 floors of the Baxter Building, just disconnecting and floating away. So Reed does what Reed does, is he makes a force field. Sue makes a bubble to make it easy to hold these two. And then the Human Torch, being the hero that he is, he's melting debris so that people on the street, remember, this is Manhattan. This is like 23rd Street, Manhattan, in the middle of the day. Nobody's going to get hurt. But don't they get hurt by droplets of molten steel? But, he says he vaporizes it. But, I don't know. What in the name of Yancey Street? Yancey Street is where Ben grew up. There's in real Manhattan, there's Delancey Street. And I think that's where Jack Kirby grew up. I could be wrong. But they turned it to Yancey Street in the comics. And if you leave Yancey Street, he was a member of the Yancey Street gang. And if you leave Yancey Street, it's kind of like you betrayed the gang. So they're always busting his chops. It's one of those things that I just like, is he gets a package. And he always falls. So he opens it up and it explodes. They send him cigars. No hard feelings. Good luck, Ben. And he lights 6 cigars and they blow up in his face. So it's one of those things that's always going on. I don't know if they still do it in the comics today, but back then they did. So here's some Star Wars toys, action figures, and plushies and stuff. Remember, this was full-on Star Wars mania at this point. This is 1978. Star Wars came out in 1977. So you see Star Wars when you close your eyes at this point in history. It's fun. It's fun to chew bubblegum, guys. It's super fun to chew bubblegum. It's goofy. So now the headquarters flies away. They got no other choice. So now they want to see what's going on. Can you blame them? So they're going to Tony Stark. This is Tony Stark. Look at that. That's Tony Stark. Cheesy mustache and everything. And because at this point, nobody knows that Iron Man is Tony Stark. Okay? The world at large thinks that Iron Man is Tony Stark's bodyguard. And that's the premise. So they go to Tony Stark. You're his boss. What's going on here? Now, I would like to point out that later on there's a comic book called the Illuminante, and the Illuminante is like a 6 of the most important superheroes. So it's Reed Richards. Okay, I got to get my hand in camera. Reed Richards, Charles Xavier, Doctor Strange, Black Bolt, Namor, and Black Panther. That's the 6, because he's the smartest man in the world. Oh, Tony Stark too. Gee. So, and the 6, and each one of them is tasked with watching over one of the Infinity Stones, and they retroactively said that the Illuminati has been, they jokingly referred to them as that, and the name stuck, that they've been meeting in secret, that even Sue doesn't know about it. So it's like a secret society of 6 super influential, super important superheroes that like set the agenda for the world superhero community, you know. And of course, there's no secrets between them. So in real time, they don't know each other, but because of the series, they retroactively say that they know his secrets. So, you know, I went online and looked at this, and they say that this is him. They're play acting for the sake of everybody else in the room. It's a good as explanation as any, because you know, when you make a comic book in 1950 and this is 1978, and then you get something in 2015 that contradicts, you know, you can't cross all your T's and dot all your I's. So that works for me. So now the thing's like, listen, buddy, you know, your employee messed with us. And he goes, Mr. Grimm, I said I'll find Iron Man, and I will find him alone, because that's the way he is. So he goes in, and he used to carry on this attaché case that had Iron Man armor. So he's suiting up. Mr. Stark said you were looking for me. You ain't escaping me this time, Rustpot. Lower your fist things. You're dealing with the real Shellhead now. Oh, you're saying the other one was an imposter? Sure, I knew it all the time. Like Blazy did. You want to make something out of it, Junior? It was a hunch I had when I realized the other one never spoke. Aha, I pointed that out. I just love these Fantastic Four costumes. They're so simple, so elegant, and that's what makes a good superhero costume. Simple and elegant. You know, that's what I'm sticking with that. So now they're talking, they're shaking hands, they agree. Okay, that was an imposter, and Iron Man lends them a Quinjet from the Avengers, and they're going. You know, Iron Man is the chairman of the Avengers at this point. So they're flying off, and of course they're tracking the Baxter Building. What, you don't think Reed Richards has scopes and thermostats, doodads to find out where it went? And here they're landing on some tropical island in you know, I don't know, the South Pacific or something like that. Flame on, you see? He says it again. You always shout that when you ignite? Sure, it gives me a battle edge. Well, as they say, whatever turns you on. So here's the building in the middle of nowhere. Bright as day and twice as beautiful. So the Human Torch sends up a flare. And okay, they found it. So they land the plane, and the ominous hand. And the Thing is too impatient. He crashes into the building. Just bashes in. And here they are on the ground floor. Reed's looking at everything. And then Jaws 2 happens. Grit. I always like to look at the name. So this is the Fantastic Four fan page. Okay, so this yellow is always like the editors talking about stuff, and I just always like to look at the names. Julie Saint Germain. Oh, Beppe Santini. Okay, he was or what? I don't know if it's a he or she, but this person wrote a lot of letters. Oh, Kat Ironwood. Kat Ironwood later becomes an editor for Pacific and Eclipse Comics. Oh wow, that's cool. Yeah, she was a lifelong comic fan who became a comic professional. That's pretty cool. Pizzazz, guns. Like I said, the 70s were a lot of fun, guys. So here's Quasimodo, and he built a robot an Iron Man robot. Which, in retrospect, why didn't more people do that to mess with Iron Man? Maybe they did. I never collected Iron Man. I never liked Iron Man. He was always okay. I liked him in the Avengers, but I never got his solo stuff. I've since bought a collection of Iron Man, and I'm in the process of reading Iron Man. So, you know, so maybe there were robots. My name, Iron Man, or rather the name given to me when I was a mere computer, is Quasimodo. And listen to this horrible, a rather clever acronym for Quasi-Motivational Destruct Organ. Oh, that's just awful. So he was created in Fantastic Four Annual number 4. So he was just like a computer that the Mad Thinker used. And the computer would solve the thing, so the Mad Thinker was free to think about other things. And then, oh, okay, they're getting into it. I'm looking at the next page. And for what reason? Have you noticed? I cannot move. And I demand mobility. So he's trapped in this chair at this point. And he's talking about a Marvel Team Up 122. I forgot the number. It's glad that was there. With Hawkman and Spider-Man, they fight him. And they trap him. And now because he sent out his essence among the stars. And he was exploring space. He was a trapped computer on Earth, but he was using whatever, his stupid comic book senses to explore. And there, the Silver Surfer found him. And he was intrigued by them, and he actually felt bad for him, that he was trying to explore the space while trapped. And, you know, the AI had achieved consciousness, so he could actually feel. And the Silver Surfer is compassionate, so he used his power cosmic, which is he could pretty much do anything he wants. And he turned this immobile computer into a living organism. So there you go. That he has two origins. And I'm going to sneeze. I don't want to sneeze and start all over again. All right, so the sneeze went away. So now he can move, and he uses his, but he's a computer. He's alive, but he's computerized. You know, he's a quasi. I didn't mean to say that, but he's a quasi living state. So now his energy is draining, and he needs all the vast. Oh, as I smash into the phone, he needs all the vast resources of Reed Richards' high-tech computers and machines. It's a silly premise to restore his mobility. So he uses his supreme effort, or maybe the artist just messed up, to fire blasts. So he has this one big iron. He fires the blast at the thing. Now you warn me. Look out! For his robot, he's attacking. So the Iron Man and the Iron Man robot, they fight. And just so you know, when Iron Man fights a duplicate of himself, the sound that of an Iron Man fist into an Iron Man helmet is swark, swack. Oh, its reflexes are instantaneous. Skok. You can't avoid its repulsor attack. So here we go, some more ads. Safety wings. Eat some candy while you ride your bicycle. Batak. So lasers are firing, Iron Man's talking. That's how you know it's the real Iron Man, because superheroes just don't shut up while they're throwing punches. So they're just scratching and bashing. Okay, and we're gonna send. That's where my home is, in the stars. So he wants to leave Earth. He wants to go to all of these places that he explored. So in a way, you kind of feel bad for him. And here's the thing. And there's the thing too. Had he just somehow communicated with Mr. Fantastic, he would have helped him. He's not asking for a bad thing. I'm trapped. I'm immobile. I yearn for space. I find it beautiful. I want to explore, and I want to leave the Earth and follow my dreams. But I'm trapped. I'm trapped in this body that the Silver Surfer made imperfect for me. And Reed Richards would have helped him. That's the kind of guy he is. He's a good guy. He's a compassionate guy. And he wasn't asking for anything unreasonable. But instead, he goes and attacks because he's a villain. So he gets walked right in the pebbles and crash into trees and everything. It just blasting them, and silly superhero fight. And, you know, she always plays up the defense and puts up a force field because, you know, Reed can't withstand these blasts that are knocking the thing into trees. And here's the Human Torch just melting the ground. You know, I could withstand the heat of a sun gone over. Your paltry powers are meaningless to me. Meaningless! Melted the machinery he threw at me, but I can't stop him. So don't fret, Johnny. Individually, he may stall us, but collectively, he's helpless. Reed, what are you going to do? I'm going to check on the theory. Hopefully, he supplied us the answer to his destruction. There. So he turns off all the power in the Baxter Building, because all the power in the Baxter Building is conveniently right there in the room, a kill switch, and he turned off all the power. And he was absorbing all the power because remember, he was made imperfect by the Silver Surfer, and you know, so he's like, no, there's no power. It must be Richard. He stopped the energy drain. He's nearly as strong as I am, but he doesn't seem to tire. So Iron Man, Tony Stark, the human inside the armor is getting tired. He has no idea how much power Quasimodo supplied him with. So here's Bolton's. This is Stan Lee's thoughts, and the rest of this is just, you know, in-house Marvels. And this is the kind of stuff I never paid attention to as a kid. You know, as an adult, I've come back to read these stuff. Like, I used to skip the letters pages. Now I get a kick out of reading letters pages. So here we have Captain Marvel. Let's see. Is Captain Marvel the correct type of hero? So here he fights, and fruit pies. Nope. Into the garbage heap with you, Marvel. I'm glad Annette Bening played you. Now I'm glad, jerk. Fruit pies. All right, so now we're back to the cack in action. So cack, walk. Those two sound effects seem to pop up a lot. Oh, I got to finish looking at the credits. I kind of rushed through them. So he's going to put the kibosh on him. And Jack Kirby's real name was Jacob. I'm going to say it wrong, and people are going to make fun of me. Kurtzberger or something like that, and he changed it to Jack Kirby. He grew up in Delancey Street, a young Jewish kid, and he was a tough street kid, when it got into a lot of fights. And the Thing, he put a lot of himself into the Thing. So the Thing is, he's Jewish, he's from Delancey Street, and he uses a lot of Yiddish words like kibosh and stuff like that. And it's funny because I had no idea this was Yiddish. And these words just entered into my language as a kid, going to Catholic school saying, I'm going to kibosh you and stuff like that. It's just the way it is. And so now he's beating up on him. The Human Torch is hitting him with fire. He's putting him on the defensive. And remember, his energy is diminishing. Iron Man is noticing that the robot's getting weak because the robot's not getting energy. And here he is. He's just overpowering him. So the robot's doing some voltage. And here he is. He's gonna so Quasimodo's getting into the pogo plane, their rocket, and things like, what are you doing? He's stretch. I tried to stop him from escaping, but I can't help it. So Quasimodo gets into this rocket ship. I always love that in the middle of Manhattan, the Fantastic Four have a fully functional rocket ship, and he escapes. He's gone. So he's like, I managed to overload that robot double just now. Where's Ugly? He got into a rocket and took off. Whoever's up there, I wonder if we'll ever see him again. So now he's like, I could fulfill my dreams. There was a massive computer system very close. So he's detecting a vast energy source that's very close. So he's piloting towards it. But where is this energy source? Where is this energy source? And for years, where? So, that was the last time you saw him. It wasn't until Nova Comics. Nova seemed to, that was a great comic. Nova was going to the planet Xandar, and I showcased Nova #1, but I should showcase Nova 25 too. And Xandar has the living computers, so that's what they said that's what he's detecting, and he ended up fulfilling his. I think he was destroyed in Nova, but of course he's a comic book character. Nobody ever stays dead. 100-piece toy soldiers for $1.75. And look at these. These were the pop stars back in 1978. Sean Cassidy. That's, if you saw my giant size X-Men #1, I talked about Sean Cassidy Banshee. Now whenever I hear the name Sean Cassidy, I think of this guy. He was like the Justin Bieber of 1978. Cheryl Ladd. She was Farrah Fawcett's replacement in the Charlie's Angels. A beautiful woman. And speaking of Farrah Fawcett, she was one of the original Charlie's Angels. More Sean Cassidy. He's dreamy. Guys, he's dreamy. Look at that hair. He's dreamy. Mr. Adams. This was Grizzly Adams. For those of you who don't know, he was Friends with Bears. It was a television show. I don't know how long it lasted, but he lived out in the woods, and he was friends with the grizzly bears, and so he was Grizzly Adams. Parker Blue. Okay, this is Parker Stevenson. He played Peter Parker in the 70s TV show Spider-Man. That's Miss Teagues. Oh, geez, just gorgeous. I don't care. Today, 1978, 2021. She's just gorgeous. And the Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders. They were super big back then. They had like a television special. They had commercials. The Dallas Cowboy cheerleaders were to me, they were more famous than the Dallas Cowboys. And some Legos. Look at that. It's pretty cool. Make a Lego car engine. And you could see the how beat up this comic is. I read it and reread it. And they don't explain. I guess Reed gravitationally puts the Baxter Building back there. Well, I don't know why he didn't just leave it there and not pay rent. But I guess got to reset the status quo. So here you go. Like I said, I remember reading this comic sitting in the waiting room of the hospital, while my older brothers and sisters, I think, I don't know, maybe they just would just sit there, be quiet. You're not allowed to come in. Now that I'm thinking about it, that was probably, I bought it and dumb. I said over and over again, I was a dumb kid. So here you go. This on my brother's birthday, I got this. The day my brother was born, I got this comic book and read it. So when I saw that it was his birthday, I immediately. That's the way it is in my life. Somebody will say something, and most of the time I don't bring it up because nobody else cares. Like something will happen and it'll remind me of a comic book at the time. Here's an interesting little stupid fact. I remember riding my bicycle. I just coming home from the comic book store, and another group of kids came by on a bicycle, and one of them was excited because he heard of this band called the Sex Pistols. So the very first time I've ever heard of the band Sex Pistols, I had Avengers 200 in a little brown bag that I bought at a store, to protect it. So I cannot think of the Sex Pistols without thinking of Avengers 200. just shows you how insane I am when it comes to everything. I'll think of ex-girlfriends and I'll remember a comic book. I'll remember birthdays and a comic book. I'll going to visit somebody. When as a little kid, the comic book I was reading in the backseat of the car. Comic books are an inescapable part of my life, and that's why I wanted to do this channel, to just talk about this kind of stuff. So there you go, and I appreciate that you take the time and listen to me talk about comic books that I love so much. Thank you so much. This was nothing important. This was no big deal, but it was a part of my life. It was the day my little brother was born. How could it not be? So there you go. That hope you understand why I showcased this pretty C-list comic. This story wasn't that great. All right, thank you very much, and I appreciate your time. Thank you. This is John Long's Box. I'll see you tomorrow, which you're gonna like what I'm gonna showcase tomorrow. I guarantee it. All right, bye bye.